Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the ICLEI webinar, this time focusing on towards Sendai2015, which is the World Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction. My name is Yunus Arikan. I'm the Head of Global Policy and Advocacy at ICLEI Local Governments for Sustainability, which is acting as one of the organizing partner of local authorities major group at the conference. So today's webinar, we will go through the overall context of the Sendai conference within the post-2015 global development agenda, the history and the importance in this context. We will review what has been achieved so far, the current text and the agenda of the conference, and how can be actively involved in a number of agendas. This session is also at the moment recorded, and it may be also be published on the homepage. As you have seen, originally you are muted, and by the time when we stop the presentation, then we would be happy to give the floor to each participant if you want to contribute by either posting a question or a comment or provide your inputs. So in that sense, we thank you all for your time and participation, and we wish this would be a helpful and fruitful session for our preparations. With this, I'd like to immediately go to the next slide. So basically, the efforts on sustainability towards the post-2015 development agenda has been shaped by intergovernmental frameworks and also the engagement of local and subnational governments as observer or stakeholders of this process. If we look at the overall intergovernmental processes, the overarching document is the Rio+20 outcome document. If you can recall, it was in 2012 where the heads of state have met after 20 years following the 1992 Rio summit. They have adopted a document which is 270 paragraph. It had already tried to lay the ground for the future work. It didn't make concrete decisions as such in many areas, but it kicked off a number of processes, and some of these processes have already been advancing, but there are some who has been recently introduced to the context. In terms of what has been proposed in this post-2015 development agenda, there are a number of processes that is important. The first one is the Sustainable Development Goals, which is in fact aiming to be applicable to all countries of the world, regardless of their development level, and it should be much more encompassing. This logic of Sustainable Development Goals is aiming to replace or supplement the Millennium Development Goals that was adopted in the year 2000 for developing countries in a number of limited areas. So Sustainable Development Goals will be much broader in terms of content, and it will be applicable to all countries. That's why it is really a challenging process. The other point that is important in the 2015 development agenda is the climate regime, which is impacting a number of areas, not just environment, but especially energy, finances. So this has also, of course, a history before and after the Rio+20 outcome document, but obviously the success and achievements of the climate regime, which will be finalized hopefully in Paris in 2015, will have a strong relevance to the success of the development agenda efforts as well. The Hyogo framework for action, which we will focus more in detail, has been one of those processes which has a history before the Rio+20, but it was made very visible that it will be one of the defining moments of the development agenda. Something new is the 10-year framework programs on sustainable consumption and production. The nations finally agreed to roll out on that. This is an ambitious agenda. Secretariat is led by UNEP, but it is mainly trying to promote a culture of sustainability in all type of activities of the society. Another agenda that is on the table that will shape the success of the post-2015 development agenda is the biodiversity agenda, where there is a specific plan on cities and subnational authorities, which we are aiming to replicate such successes in other fora. While these are processes, which means in each of them there are specific working groups, there are specific documents, there are specific participation opportunities, there are some milestones in terms of the decision making which will define the results of these processes. The most important one is the high-level political forum, which is in fact replacing the Commission on Sustainable Development. This high-level political forum is one of the results of the Rio+20. The logic is that this will convene every year at the ministerial level, but at every 4 years it will be convened at the heads of state level, which will give more opportunity for a regular review of the progress on sustainability. And in that sense, the UN General Assembly, which will convene in September 2015, will have a major role in conclusion of many of those processes, in particular the Sustainable Development Goals. While this is in September in General Assembly 2015, the year will have witnessed the Sendai Disaster Risk Reduction Conference in March. At the end of the year, there is Paris Climate Conference. During the year, there will be inputs and processes related to UN Environment Assembly, which is also a new body that is established since Rio+20. And all these will also follow up, especially for local and subnational, towards Habitat 3 conference, which will be held in 2016. So as local and subnational governments, we are able to interact all these processes either as an observer, accredited observer body, individual organizations, but also collaborative advocacy efforts. This includes Local Government Climate Roadmap, which has started in 2007. The Global Task Force was launched immediately after the finalization of the Rio+20 conference. There's an urban SDG campaign process going on. Communitas has also been an active advocacy effort of ICLEI in collaboration with a number of partners. And Local Government Biodiversity Roadmap is also our key process in the biodiversity area. So while having this, so where does the Sendai 2015 fit in all these processes? First, the one thing that has to be kept in mind is that Hyogo process is defining disasters in a broad context that is beyond climate. So it has to focus on economic, social, environmental shocks and disasters and crises. Therefore, it is to go beyond climate in that sense, which is much more inclusive in terms of the agenda that we have been discussing in the Hyogo discussions. The process, Hyogo framework, is mainly driven by the UN agency, which is International Strategy for Disaster Reduction. The primary documents have started in early 1990s. It is mainly focused on prevention rather than the damage recovery. It has each achieved a more systematic approach with the Hyogo framework of action that was adopted in 2005. And in this process, Making Cities Resilient campaign was launched in 2010, which is bringing local and subnational governments very close to the disaster risk reduction agenda. The importance of Sendai, as we have mentioned before, first, it is the first conference in the post-2015 process, but also in terms of the vision laid out in the documents and also the practice through the HFA process, it is one of the strongest in terms of recognition, engagement, and empowerment of local and subnational governments. With that context, we believe as long as we can get a very strong achievement in the official document of HFA2, we can consider this could be can set a precedent to other development agendas, especially in the SDGs and climate change in the months ahead in 2015. In terms of interlinkages to these processes in the climate arena, we all know that adaptation was not a big focus until 2000s, early 2000s, and when disasters started to hit more frequently, and it was also hitting also in the north and developed countries, there was a discussion that adaptation should be a core issue. It's also linked to the fact that mitigation efforts are not successful as expected. However, there's no binding regime on adaptation at the moment. There's no specific goal. It has to be included in the Paris outcome. But we already know there is a discussion, there is a framework of how loss and damage will be managed in the climate change context. That was a decision adopted in Warsaw 2013. This means whatever we do in terms of prevention, inevitably there will be more disasters and there will be more losses and damages. So how will to compensate, how the national and international actors will work on that is designed under this process. In terms of sustainable development goals, there is a specific reference to disaster in goal 1.5, which is a part of the ending poverty goal. but specifically HFA is referred in the goal on 11B, which is the goal on making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Therefore, that's another reason why there should be a strong engagement of local and subnational governments in the HFA process, so that the SDGs process could also be benefit from these outcomes. And of course, during the Climate Summit 2014 held in New York this year, in 23rd of September, there was a number of initiatives announced. This includes Compact of Mayors and Resilient Cities Accelerator Initiative, both of which are strongly recalling each other or recognizing each other, in particular in developing the adaptation and resilience indicators and reporting through of local efforts. When we discussed the Sendai 2015, we are talking about four main elements. One is the intergovernmental section, which is the official negotiations convened by the national governments, member states. These are official contact groups or plenaries where the final document will be adopted by the representatives. And this will be the framework of the new disaster risk reduction in the post-2015 process. We will go through this document in a couple of minutes. There is expectation to have a Sendai declaration, which is much more a shorter document, like a 10 bullet points, which will be a signal for the political vision that will be defined technical at the HFA2 document. There will be a number of ministerial roundtables. One of them will focus on urbanization, but there will be other themes as well, and there will be a number of partnership dialogues. The other part is the multi-stakeholder segment, which is focusing on achievements of the past period, what are the new emerging risks, and what are the commitments to implementation. And the last part is the public forum, which is actually the side events and exhibits which are proposed by all observers, and the ISDR is screening this, and then now the final list of events have been almost about to be released. But we also know there are a number of events during the conference in the city of Sendai, hosted in a number of venues. Very recently, ISDR also launched a process called Ignite Stage, which is mainly a 15 minutes of presentation of specific projects or initiatives that will be again reviewed and as finally adopted, approved by the ISDR. How are we going towards Sendai conference? What are the key milestones? What are the activities on the way towards? So this slide focuses on that. We will we have already gone through the ministerial conferences and regional platforms. This was held in 2013 and in 2014. All these fed into the first preparatory committee that was held on 15th and 16th of July in Geneva. Out of these discussions, today's discussions, the co-chairs appointed by the member states have prepared their first pre-zero order draft text in August. During September and October, they received inputs from the stakeholders as well as national governments through informal consultations, through online or face-to-face meetings in Geneva. Then, based on all these inputs, they released their first zero-order draft, which is expected to be the base of negotiations. This document was presented to the preparatory committee on its second meeting on the 17th and 18th of November. And this started a series of negotiations. And the first version of this negotiations, which means that all the parties provided their inputs to the document based on their priorities and expectations. Obviously, some of these proposals are contradicting to each other. We are all aware that the nations, mainly developed and developing countries, but also there are in between other parties who are not agreeing on the same points as necessary. So there is now an expanded version of the text, and the co-chairs will work on this and how to consolidate all these inputs through a consensus language which will satisfy all the parties, and hoping that it will be universally adopted at the conference. Between now and January, there will also be a major milestone where the commitments of every local government or every organization is expected to be submitted to the ISDR at the end of 31st of December. Another round of consultations among parties will be held on in January, 12th to 16th of January. Based on this revised reading and inputs, There will be a second draft of the negotiation text released on the 31st of January. The Resident Cities Congress Asia Pacific will be held in Bangkok in February. This will be an important milestone for local governments, providing their final contributions to the discussions. Meanwhile, on the 20th of February, we will have to submit all our delegation lists to the registration applications. And on the 13th of March, there will be the third preparatory committee, where in parallel, all the major groups will also have their final positions and expectations, including local and subnational governments as well. And on the 14th to 18th of March, World Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction will take place in Sendai. So what is now the vision of the second phase of HFA2, which is drafted under the zero-order draft document? There is a preamble, there is an expected outcome and goal, there are guiding principles, priorities for action, role of stakeholders, and international cooperation and global partnerships. This was the proposal by the co-chairs, and this is now subject to the approval or support of the parties. At the second PrepCom meeting in Geneva this November, ICLEI participated together with UCLG a number of delegations. What we have shared with the parties and the ISDR and all the other partners is that there is a need to address the urban world in the 21st century, which the HFA2 will be applying to. And we are worried that the text does not recognize that this urbanization is a core element in the face of the 21st century, that there is a need to strengthen this vision, we believe. The document should be able to integrate vertical integration of all actions at all levels. There are important initiatives developed by local governments, either globally or through bottom-up approaches, and there should be a reference to those efforts as a contribution to these processes we are referencing to, like Durban Adaptation Charter. So what we have noticed in the document is that there is a strong reference to how to deal with climate-related disasters, but there is not too much provisions on how to deal with high-risk industrial and energy facilities. We can refer to the cases like Bhopal or Chernobyl or even Fukushima. Especially Fukushima is the latest case, and it's very clear that it started with a natural disaster, which is it's a tsunami, but it escalated because an industrial and an energy facility was impacted with this disaster, and suddenly it went beyond the natural disaster, but it turned into an ecological and economical disaster. However, the PRIHOGA framework at the moment does not make any specific provisions how to deal with this kind of disasters in the future, but we believe there should be an emphasis on that. Insurance systems are important elements to prevent or increase preparedness. However, we are also noticing that it's not too much clear what will be the role of insurance system, how will they adjust themselves, how will we be making better use of these systems. And we also would like to propose that there are a number of actions on the mitigation and adaptation side which can be interpreted as a disaster risk reduction element, so that an early action may already be enabling that if the disaster happens, the number of affected people and the number of losses are reduced because this kind of early action is taking place. So this kind of holistic approaches should have some place to be discussed in the HFO2 framework. Based on this vision, we have also gone through paragraph by paragraph in all on the documents, especially in the priority areas, how to understand the risks, how to strengthen governance, investments and role of stakeholders. Here, this document, you can see what type of language we recommend to be included in the revised text. Of course, these are submissions by ICLEI, and it has to be shared by the national governments, because at the end, it's the national governments who would decide on these proposals whether it will be applied or not. Among those whole paragraph, now we have seen the version I will show you in a minute. There is a new text which is now extended to 43 pages. Originally it was 20 pages or so, because all the pros and constructive or precautionary proposals by parties are listed there. When we look at the document, the paragraph 15D was the most important one that refers to empowerment and leadership of local governments. At the moment, there is no party who is rejecting this paragraph. There are some minor revisions, and we believe this is a good signal because this paragraph will really help us to say that there is a strong recognition and then resources dedicated to local governments in the way towards post-2015 period. There is also a paragraph 28D, which we would hope that it could be revised, but at the moment there is not too much progress on that. Most importantly, the paragraph that defines the role of stakeholders, including subnational government, local and subnational governments, and the partnerships are now in complete brackets, which means that there are some parties who reject this vision there, or they wish it to be formulated in a different language. So we will see how this vision will be adopted or incorporated by the new text prepared by the parties in the January and onwards. There is a strong call from the ISDR for all observers to come up with their commitments. We are struggling, of course, because every UN agency is now asking for a new commitment from local governments. Therefore, we wanted to make, at least from ICLEI point of view, as a collective commitment. We are internally discussing with all the regional offices and our members as appropriate, that we can focus our commitments on 3 areas. First, at the moment, there is a huge lack of consistency at the global level among all UN agencies about how to. There's a strong benefit if each of them can help to advance. The 10 action points of making cities resilient campaign can be a strong preparation for an adaptation process, whereas if the cities are completing their resilience campaign, they can continue the work through community-based or ecosystem-based adaptation. And the last commitment from ICLEI would be that, as you may have known, Resilient Cities Congress is being conducted every year annually since 2010 in Bonn. And this has been a huge platform where now all the actors of the urban resilience and adaptation has been gathering, especially local governments and their partners. So we would propose that this could be considered as an annual review of monitoring session for local governments in the HFA2 process. This can be our contribution as a commitment to the overall Sendai agenda. And now with this, I've reached to the end of my presentation. As I said, we would be more interested to hear your inputs, expectations. But here you can find a couple of websites, links. And just to also conclude, here is the website of the conference. When you go into the conference website, you see that each section, which is intergovernmental segment, multi-stakeholder segment, public forum, they all have their extensions. There's a list of agendas, which means that, for example, in the intergovernmental segment, which type of roundtables will be held, what type of partnership dialogues will be held, and similarly in the multi-stakeholder segments, what are the sessions organized, what are the themes that will be discussed. And towards the end of this month, we should also be expressing the interest panelists or speakers to each of these sessions. This will be mainly communicated to ISDR, and then they will share with the team leaders of each agenda. With this, I'd like to conclude, and the last point I want to show you is this, the current text. As you can see here, you can find a number of red words which defines which country has proposed this. For example, the German government is continuously proposing that the new framework should be not called just risk reduction. It should be disaster risk reduction and management. So that's, of course, philosophically has a different and progressive thinking. But there are some countries, of course, who are rejecting some of the existing text. For example, the definition of hazards is expected to be deleted by some parties, or they have a different language in terms of the paragraph. If we go to, for example, 15D, at the moment, 15D is the paragraph that is very relevant to us. And here, the current language is communities. As you can see, there are some wording that is changing, but the overall notion is kept there. So this is a good news. and this is a type of examples that we should expect, that these paragraphs may be changed in the days ahead, and we have to stay in close collaboration with the national governments who are participating in this process. So with this, I'd like to conclude my first round of presentation. I know there are a number of colleagues in this webinar who had been already participating in the resident cities, sorry, both in the Residencies Congress, but as well as preparatory committee, who have been actively involved in this processes. Maybe you may like to share your positions and proposals and ideas. You can participate by raising your hand so that we know that you have a point to mention, or you can type in the chat box your questions. If you want to raise your hands, and if you raise your hands, we can unmute the microphone for you so that you can participate by an active dialogue. Unfortunately, this session is in English, so we would appreciate if you can contribute by English. And with this, I'd like to open the floor to all participants. At the moment, I don't see any specific hand or any question, but I know Margarita from Bogota, city of Bogota, is also a participant of this conference call webinar, but she was also actively involved in the first PrepCom, and now I see the hand from Margarita. Margarita, if you'd like to contribute in the dialogue, please, the floor is yours.
Oh, I don't know how to do it now.
No, we can speak now. We are all hearing you.
Oh, you can hear?
Yeah.
Ah, great. Hello, Yunus. Thank you very much for this organization. It's really wonderful to see that technology is helping us to communicate throughout the world.
Exactly.
Yes, I would like to, as we met in Lima, how are you making the link between the Lima last commitments and Sendai, just to understand the synergy or the follow-up between one topic and the other?
Well, this seems to be like a million-dollar question, because even the national government or the UN is not too much clear on that. From my understanding, the Sendai process will prepare nations and every actors of the society to improve their preparedness to disasters, so that every action they take will minimize their risks. But when it comes to climate-related extreme events, which means when there are disasters, obviously how much you have prepared, there will be certain losses. And climate change will focus on the loss and damage and the adaptation process more like a development perspective, which is after the disaster is happening, as far as I can understand. How these two will go hand in hand, honestly, I'm not sure, and I don't know. As I said, we can take ecosystem-based adaptation or community-based adaptation measures. We can implement such measures, and this can already help us to minimize our risks for upcoming disasters. So I don't know how this would be recognized for each processes. Therefore, honestly speaking, I don't have a clear answer to your question as such.
Okay, but I think we all have to think it very thoroughly, because one of the issues that worries me is that, as we saw in Lima and we have seen in previous events, the cities are usually located far away from the government sessions, and the People's Summit is still far away. And I don't know what is the size of Sendai, but as we saw in Lima, we can see that each stakeholder does not communicate with the other. How can we break the ice to have a more fluid communication, and that we can convince the UN to have a new strategy to communicate among national governments, local and sub-regional authorities, and community-based organizations? Because nowadays it's like silos, fragmented areas where people are doing their number, but we don't know if the dialogue is really going on.
Well, for this, they have proposed this kind of multi-stakeholder engagement, which is giving the chance to participate in a number of sessions. This will be more like roundtables, as far as I know. And of course, there will not be a decision coming out of this session. This is mainly mobilization of engagement in terms of the discussion. But the real decisions will be adopted by parties in this text that I have showed you. Practically speaking, the silo working may continue. During the session, there will be a number of events. As far as I know, City of Sendai is also preparing to host a mayor's summit as well. At the moment, there is not too much room or space that will bring all parties, except, as you have seen in the prep comms, the co-chairs are having a 1 hour discussion with the parties, 1 hour discussion with the stakeholders. The parties are also participating to the extent they wish, and this ministerial roundtables can also be the other opportunity where the cities can also participate. But as I said, the main decisions will be the text, so the other discussions will be more like share of experiences and share of views without necessarily resulting into any decision.
Okay, thank you. I think we should inaugurate or innovate in 2015 some kind of a new architecture to improve the dialogue between local governments and national governments. I don't know how, but we really have to think it thoroughly.
You're correct, and there is another difficulty. For example, when we are going to New York, we are talking to national governments. There are delegations there. There are permanent representatives to the UN. There are mainly diplomats, but also there are technical teams involved. We go to climate change conferences. It's again the same national governments, but there is a different team, which is ministers of environment or related people. We don't know how these different delegations are talking to each other. And when we come to disaster, this is also a totally different community. Personally, I have been involved in all these negotiations almost, at least in the last 1 or 2 years, that is also having some sort of a cross-cutting of all of them. I hardly see same people attending the same conference. This means that the national governments are committing to something without necessarily hearing what they have committed into other process. So there is a huge discussion, and this brings the most important thing is that all these UN agreements make sense as long as they are implemented at the national and subnational level. So the dialogues you will have with your delegations, either for the submission of proposals, for example, Colombian government, I don't know, for example, in which paragraph they are proposing which agenda, you should be able to communicate with them before coming to the text, and also once these texts are adopted in the implementation, you should be talking to them more at the national level.
Yes, yes, we know that, but it is a scheme that doesn't work as we would like it to be most efficient. So I'm wondering if there will be a space for mayors that would be attractive enough for national delegations to attend.
You mean an event of the mayors so that the national governments will follow?
Yes.
This is, I'm a bit cautious on that because, as you have seen in Lima, in a typical negotiation, anything outside the conference venue, it is very difficult for negotiators to leave their space because they are, by default, are mandated to be in the negotiation rooms. So I heard that there will be a mayor summit on the 16th, probably, from UCLG with Sendai, but if it is at the City Hall, as you have seen in Lima City Hall in the climate conference last week, the number of negotiators we can bring to City Hall are limited. It can be very high level for a number of parties, but not all the parties can come. And these are much more easier when you organize side events in the UNFCCC or UN compound or UN venue, which can make more easily the participation of national governments. So, and as long as there is no specific outcome, what will be offered to the national delegations to come to the mayor's session, I don't know exactly, because other than the stakeholder dialogues, negotiators will focus on mainly the text. And now I'm sure, I think you're seeing my screen. Now I see a new paragraph being proposed by, for example, Brazil and Colombia, as you can notice. It is very interesting. Let me read to you, all of you. It says, actions concerning territorial and urban planning should be fostered and implemented as a necessary strategy for the adaptation to climate change and aimed at strengthening risk management strategies in the local, national, regional, and global level. In fact, this language is exactly trying to formulate saying that early action on adaptation can support the risk reduction. So this paragraph, I hope it's a good, I believe it's a good proposal, and it is presented by Brazil and Colombia. And I haven't gone fully of all the text, the new proposals, but it seems this can be a very good proposal, and it may be good to strengthen the adoption of such texts. For example, there is now.
What number is that?
This is in the new proposal in paragraph 15.
Okay.
There's a new proposal. It's on my screen now. This text is not uploaded on the homepage yet, but in this 15 L, which is, it will be after, it will be a new paragraph. This is a new paragraph proposed by Brazil and Colombia, which was not on the text before November.
Yes.
So these kind of proposals may come up, and we can consider to support the national governments to accept these kind of proposals.
Yes, thank you very much for highlighting this point.
Yeah, as I said, this was released only on Monday. I just received it on yesterday, and I'm just going through with you as well. So there may be other paragraph that we may not have seen it yet, but we may focus on that. I can forward these texts to you because
for that input. Yes, please send it in hand here in Colombia.
Sorry. Yeah. And you just informed Margarita that Bogota is planning to attend with a strong delegation, including the mayor. And
yes,
this issue of how to position mayors in the best possible way, there is one at least ministerial roundtable which will be convening among the ministers, but there will be rooms for a couple of mayors. As far as I know, there's only 2 at the moment. We could work with UCLG that we nominate the mayors that we are strongly actively working, and we know Bogota is active in the disaster risk reduction and disaster preparedness especially at the regional level. We can already propose this to the ISDR. We also heard in today's webinar that the governor of Bangkok is also planning to come, and he is also hosting the Resilient Cities Asia Pacific meeting just 3 weeks before, so he would also be able to communicate the outcome of this event. And we will see who else, which other mayors will be there, and we could also try to force technical staff of the cities to participate in other sessions as well.
Okay, that's great.
For this, I think maybe we can circulate a list of all events and ask which ones are you interested in, and put your names so that we send this to UN by the end of this month. Unfortunately, it's overlapping with the year end and the New Year preparations, but I hope we can make it. I will just consult with ISDR whether this deadline of 31st of December can be ever flexible and make it a bit extended.
Yes,
so
that would be good to be flexible, because as you know, here in Latin America, people are already disconnecting themselves from this week, end of this week, until the 12th of January.
Yeah. I will raise this issue with ISDR so that at least the deadline should be extended to 15th of January.
Okay, thank you very much.
So is there any other colleague who would like to contribute? As I said, you can write your questions or you can raise your hands. and then participate in the dialogue. You can express comments, you can express questions. We have colleagues from Federation of Canadian Municipalities, colleague Legard Bruno from Amiens Metropole, and then we have ICLEI colleagues, a number of ICLEI colleagues joining us. If there's any specific points you would like to raise, feel free to send us a chat or raise your hands to participate. As far as I can see at the moment, there's no additional contributions. Just maybe you can think of for either from your local government or as ICLEI, what could be and there you can find that you can submit an type of an organization that you're representing. It says a government announcement, it says central government, local government, or a parliamentarian. Here, I haven't made any submission yet, but I don't know how they are defining local government according to nations. There is also the option for voluntary commitment by other organizations. So you have to define the scope, the title, in 300 words maximum, what countries this apply to, and the targets, the indicators, verification, time frame, and attachment links and descriptions and documents. So this is how a commitment can be presented. Let's look, if you like, there is any already a commitment announced by any local government at the moment. We only have commitments by the national governments. But as I said, this is open for until end of December, and I think this can also be flexibly adjusted, I hope. So as you can see, there are 4 national governments announcing certain commitments. Bulgaria is focusing on central government. Cameroon has a central government proposal and a local government proposal. And Cote d'Ivoire also has a national proposal. This would be an important area. I will try to download, if possible. I will just ask whether this commitment file is downloadable on an offline template so that we can circulate and try to insert it easily, because at the moment it's only online. There is voluntary commitments from other stakeholders. This is more in number than national governments. I'm just looking if there is any local government. Give to Asia, International Institute for Rural Reconstruction, residents in Asia. There are regional, local. And of course, once you present these commitments, how will be presented, whether you would have any resources or recognition. I don't know it at the moment yet, but it would be good to go through them. Yeah, that's for the moment. This thing, I would say that was a good dialogue. Margarita, thanks for your active participation and raising these issues, which we should take into account. But as you have mentioned, some difficult questions, some of them are beyond the capacity of us as ICLEI or local governments, which is a bit more referring to the national government's motivation and commitment. But we should push, of course. We should ask for them to do more. Let's stay in touch that we will continue these dialogues towards the next phases of the preparations. With that, I'd like to conclude this session is if there is no other colleague who would like to address any additional issue. In the participants, we have mainly colleagues from ICLEI regional offices. I see Sunandan from ICLEI South Asia, and he has just posted a question. I'm reading his comments. I was told that there would be a declaration of mayors and champions at Sendai. If so, what would be the focus of this declaration? And Laura is also raising the issue that maybe some more about how we plan to align Durban Adaptation Charter and Making Cities Resilient campaign. The first question about the declaration of mayors and champions at Sendai, there has been a discussion with ISDR and United Cities and Local Governments and us. This is still on the table. What would be the parallel events that City of Sendai will host? It's still being discussed. I think we have to connect as quick as possible to our colleagues in Sendai. So far, I don't have the details of this declaration, but we should put an eye on that. But now you raised this issue, Sunandan. If you like, I can also give the floor to you so that you can mention about the Resident Cities Asia Pacific, because that event will be the last moment before the Sendai conference, and especially it's relevant to the regional. And it is taking place in Bangkok, where one of the co-chairs is from Thailand. So I think we should make best use of the Resident Cities Asia Pacific. Regarding how to align the Urban Adaptation Charter and Making Cities Resilient campaign, this is an issue that has to be discussed with, especially with the Durban Adaptation Charter Committee. But what we know is that there are 10 principles of the Urban Adaptation Charter, which is going beyond resilience, but towards more ecosystem-based adaptation and community-based adaptation and integration between mitigation and adaptation. So if the Making Cities Resilient campaign participants are fully implementing their 10 action points, this could be the first 3 points of the Durban Adaptation Charter. So we can create a synergy like that, and we can also propose that once participants of Making Cities Resilient campaign have finished their 10 action points, they can consider to go forward to go beyond the resilience preparedness, but go towards an adaptation preparedness. So there is a question, how can cities register and participate? Registration is open. It is mainly done through the local government organizing partners or any organization who is accredited to the ECOSOC. This is also relevant to ICLEI. So ICLEI can nominate registration to the Sendai conference through its own channels. For this, participants would need to send their information forms to us. And I think it would be good if we highlight this in the Resident Cities Congress webpage so that we made a clear announcement to our interested participants. The good news is that we still have time. 20th of February is the deadline, so we don't have to be stressed on that. We should start preparations on that. So there's a question from Francisca. You mentioned that there will be a multi-stakeholder segment at Sendai. Could you please elaborate which stakeholders will taking part? It's not only local governments, of course. If you like, I can, in that sense, take to that page because I have already put the links of these sections. So this takes you each agenda, and it's in the presentation. You can find that. The internet is a bit slow today, so it's taking time. So it is basically business, women, disabled people. So it has encompassing a number of stakeholders which are assigned in the Agenda 21. So it's mainly a dialogue and debate among those stakeholders. My internet is rejecting to open, so I can connect it in the next couple of minutes, I hope. There is another question from Sunandan. What are the new elements expected to be included in HFA2 that were not there in HFA1? That's a very good question, Sunandan. Honestly speaking, I don't have a clear analysis on that regard, which we should really be able to sooner or later be able to understand. But if we go to the key elements, that there are guiding principles, priorities for action, as we have said. So understanding risks, strengthen governance. One thing that is for sure is that the new HFA2 is much more a bottom-up process, so that there will be the national responses will be mainly integrating local preparedness as well. So this is, I think, more visible in the whole document, but honestly speaking, I don't have a concrete answer on that. But we have to work on it. Maybe we could raise this issue to the ISDR colleagues as well. But this is definitely a lesson that we have to be prepared in the next couple of days, that we should be able to respond to that more clearly. Sunanda, maybe you can also mention that in the residency to Asia Pacific, are you envisaging any specific events or engagements with towards Sendai conference? So if you like, you can highlight this here. And the other participants are also welcome if they have additional comments. I don't see too much new questions. Sunandan, I can give you the microphone so that you can interact from your side. Yes, you are now able to participate and speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Sunandan, we can hear you.
Thanks, Yunus. And thank you for that really good overview. It was very helpful for me to understand actually what's happening. Just a quick input from my side would be that at the Resilient Cities Asia Pacific event, we are going to have 2 sessions which will focus specifically on resilience and disaster risk reduction. On this, we are actually going to have just exploring the potential of having a collaboration between GIZ, UN Habitat, UNISDR, UNDP, and ourselves. So this is just so that all these agencies are working on DRR issues and in the urban arena. So whether we can actually get together and design these 2 sessions. We've had a first round of discussion in which we've seen what are the key issues that we should be talking about in these 2 sessions at the Resilient Cities Asia Pacific Congress. We are also tentatively toying with the idea of having some kind of a commitment document or recommendations, if you like. We've still not pinned that down. That could be carried from the Resilient Cities Asia Pacific event to the WCDRR at Sendai in the following month. And for that, we are proposing that the Bangkok governor, as the host of Resilient Cities Asia Pacific, take that to Sendai. So we are now in the process of doing this, and so it's very good to have this background, and probably I'll get back to you, Yunus, and discuss this more with you, because we want to involve you in this process. The reason why probably we haven't really reached out to you as yet was that we didn't know whether these other agencies were interested in what we had to propose, and we just had a call yesterday or day before, and they are all very keen on these agendas. So I think there's a good opportunity of probably the discussions that you have been involved with coming out with some kind of a document, if that's feasible, which is ratified by the Asia Pacific people, and then take it to Sendai.
Well, these are good news. What I know at the moment is that the Congress website is also opened, and this is also giving us the opportunity to make more visibility. But I'd like to inform you that we have Abhilash Panda from UNISDR joining us. and now my internet is a bit better. So now you can see the three elements of the Sendai conference, which is intergovernmental segment, multi-stakeholder segment, and public forum. Abhilash, would you like to also provide additional information from your side, because I've made a brief overview, but now you're here, it's a great opportunity for our colleagues to hear from you. If you like, I can also turn you on. Abhilash? Are you here?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay. I'm not sure what more can I add to the briefing we've already done. If you, but just for others to know, there are few key segments to the entire World Conference. 13th March will also be the preparatory day of all the stakeholder groups meetings, which will include a meeting of the local government participants on 13th March. We'll also have the steering committee meeting of the resident cities on 13th March. But just for your information, 13th March is also the third platform day. By yesterday evening, the inputs to the zero draft has already been made public. And if you see the lot of comments by national governments on the initial conditions, fortunately enough, there are not major changes to the to areas that concerns local governments, apart from a few basics. Now, on the conference agenda, there are three major sections, as I would say. One is the intergovernmental section. That's primarily the ministerial roundtables, and then it goes to within the. If you click on the intergovernmental segment, here you will see, okay, there is the official plenary session, which is the opening and the closing, but beyond that, the substance is under the ministerial roundtable. There are 5 ministerial roundtables. Each ministerial roundtable would have 40 ministers plus 5 non-state, that for us, which means our experts, players, private sector, and other players. And these 5 ministerial roundtables are the ones which will decide and put forward commitments under the 5 substantive areas, which is on governance, cooperation, urban reconstruction, and public investment. And then there are 3 multi-stakeholder dialogues, which is another part of the conference. And then there are a series of working sessions, which some of them are actually based on future areas that need further attention. Just be mindful that the working sessions are mostly dialogues or discussions, and the decision-making part is under the intergovernmental segment. So there is a bit of difference in both of them. And then there will be 300 or so odd side events across the board from 13th to 18th March. 18th March is the closing, 14th March is the opening day, and all the public forum events starts from 14th onwards until 18th. So that's what I say. As Yunus said, registration is open for all major groups, including local governments. So, once the registrations applications are done, I think participants should already start booking their hotels and flights accordingly. There are hotels very much available, because I was given a feedback that there's not enough accommodation, but I just checked and there's enough accommodation in Sendai, so that's really possible. Anything else you wanted to add, Yunus?
Abhilash, that was really helpful, especially that I missed this 13th of March. A couple of questions from my side. First, the side events was supposed to be announced, but is there now a list available for that? Because people were asking which side events are approved and which ones are open. As ICLEI, we didn't submitted any request for a side event, but I think we will be receiving invitations to join a number of side events. This one thing you can explain in that sense. The second is regarding the text itself, because we received the parties, as I'm now showing. You can see there are brackets, there are additions, there are rejections. You can see which country has proposed what. The one thing that I immediately noticed is that there is a complete bracket in section 5, which means that the whole section is now under brackets. Maybe you can try to help us to explain. But what I see on 15D and 28D, we are good in that paragraph, which means that there is not too much reservations. But if the whole stakeholders is in brackets, we may be a bit worried, I guess. So you may think of touching to that. And there was one question at the beginning that is a declaration of mayors and Sendai, but I think this would refer to the local government preparatory meeting. So these are the 3 points: the side events, the text, and this declaration. If you can help us on that, that would be good. And just while you were in that, Sunanda was mentioning that the governor of Bangkok is keen, and I see your note that you're already in touch with him, which is great. That gives a good logic from Resident Cities Asia to World Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction. One thing, Sunanda, and maybe before I give the floor to Abhilash, the commitments is too late, so we have to formulate our commitments before it's. Hear me? Can you hear me now? Abhilash, can you hear me now? Yeah. Sorry, there has been a difficulty from the internet connection from our side. So just to repeat, Abhilash, I was mentioning about the side event announcements, the list, confirmed list, the paragraph or section 5 in complete brackets in terms of stakeholders, and this declaration of mayors. I don't know which session is this referring to. If you have any information, that would be good.
Okay, on the side events, those who have requested for side events and if they have been approved, I mean, they would have received a communication from the Japanese side already 3-4 weeks back. So, when does the final list come out? I think there's still 1.5 months or so time. So all those applicants who had requested for either side events or booths and so, they've already received all communications. That's done. On the I mean, related to the side events, and this has relation to the declaration, there will be three specific side events related to the resilient cities. The dates for that will be 15th, 16th, and 17th. I think UCLG has already broadcasted this. I'm not sure if you have seen it. They did a broadcast last week, and it has this information. Also, on the 13th, there will be, as I said, on the preparatory day, there will be this entire discussion on the declaration of mayors, which will be annexed to the final outcome of the World Conference. It needs a process, and we expect to work with the organizing partners to initiate this process of development of the declaration. Vis-a-vis, I mean, at least by mid-January, so that by before March, we have received input from all stakeholders across all the cities, and the mayors who would be there at Sendai would have to basically endorse it on behalf of others. And this will be chaired by SISG and the mayor of Sendai on 17th March, and this is a meeting of the role model and the champion cities. This will also have a huge impact because there is a lot of press involved in this. And we expect that this would be, this is more or less confirmed. Like, for example, the Bangkok mayor is the champion, so he will definitely be a part of it. He could be the one who could carry the message from Asia to that discussion and get things endorsed. On the text side, I'm not particularly sure, Yunus, which exactly one you're referring to, but but what you see here are basically all those inputs or suggestions that have come by different governments. Now, sections in bracket would either start with delete, add, or retain, something like that. So if you're referring to you said 28B, right?
No. I was saying that section 5 is in complete brackets. So the whole section under the partnerships is in brackets now.
Yeah, does it? I mean, that means that particular section has still to be. I mean, they still want to come back to that section. It's not that it's omitted or it's still there. But I think the next round, which is in January, it's when they will again come back to that section. And like, for example, when you see.
So you can see on the screen that the role of stakeholders, that section is complete in paragraphs, brackets, so which is not the case for others. That's what I'm a bit.
Yeah, no, because there are numerous feedback to this. If you see the list of countries there, only on the title of section 5, but then here there is a discussion also if section 5 and section 6 should be merged. I think they were separate. And there is a debate within the government if they would like to merge 5 and 6. And that's also the reason why you see bracket in the title of that section. They want to come back to it in January and decide if you need to have a separate section 5 and 6 or could it be merged to become just one section, which talks about stakeholder and cooperation or partnership.
Abhilash, just a question. Is it possible, so because you have mentioned a couple of events specific for local governments which are not on the public document, maybe together with us we can work on a specific calendar of what is the official agenda for local governments, because you mentioned about an event organized by UCLG, because I didn't know this.
No, there's no event by UCLG. UCLG did a broadcast last week. To a certain extent, they have included these things, the items that I mentioned to you. They are. I just sent you. I'll just forward it back to you, so you can have a look whenever you get a chance.
Okay.
Right. So definitely, we will need a calendar of things and a specific agenda for the local government officials, which needs work. The only delay to that would be some of the rules and dates have not been formed up yet, and we are trying to maximize their engagement. As I said, I missed something. There will be a special dinner reception for mayors, specific only mayors, on 16th March, and that's being hosted especially by the mayor of Sendai. So,
okay.
So there are a lot of items in this, but definitely we can come up with a calendar.
Okay, I think this was good for us to review, and especially as you have seen, you don't see probably, but most of the participants are from ICLEI regional offices, in particular those who were involved in the regional South Asia and Southeast Asia. So I think that was helpful for all of us to review what is going on. And we can come up. One question regarding the commitments and Ignite. The deadlines are 31st of December. Is there any possibility of a flexibility of these deadlines? Abhilash? You
I
lost
mean,
me
it's not in my authority. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
So I was saying it's not in my authority whether it could be extended. You could definitely send a request to be even if this is provided, and the focal points will decide if they can. I know they've already received a lot on the next stage, and they're currently reaching out to the ones which are very innovative in nature and to help them prepare for this session. So,
In terms of commitments, do you have a template or structure, Abhilash?
the commitment is online. So you just have to go to the commitment section. And,
Is this engage? There is no commitment section. There is an engage section.
Yeah, can you go into that? Or I can look on my site.
It says opportunities of engagement and voluntary commitments. Okay.
Yeah, go to voluntary commitments.
Okay. And is there a template for this? Yeah, there is.
Keep on scrolling down, keep on scrolling down. Okay, you can do voluntary commitment, governments, and you can just
Instructions. Okay. Okay,
so
good.
if you
That's good.
when you click on submit an announcement or commitment, you will get an option to select.
Okay. As I said, I repeated in our proposals that we will propose. We are focusing on 3 commitments, but we can discuss whether we should to increase more or we have to work on that. So each local government also has a commitment opportunity. Is that the case?
Everybody, I mean, yeah, each local government has their own opportunity to do it.
Okay. Okay. Let's see how it will be possible to make in this time frame for each local government to make a commitment. But let's decide. Let's work on it. Okay. Anything else? Any questions you'd like to raise? Because we're coming to the end of our session. It was great to have Abhilash joining us, who provided us additional points, which I think would be helpful for us. There was a question about multi-stakeholder partnerships, but I think it's now on the clear. There's a number of terminology or session description on the hub page already, and here you can see the list of sessions. So the organization of these sessions, Abhilash, how are you convening these? This multi-stakeholder dialogues. Maybe we lost Abhilash. Please.
They all have organizing teams behind it, and this is something similar as you would have noticed for the municipal roundtable or urban. So these organizing teams are the ones who are developing.
Die Stummschaltung ist aktiviert.
The guiding questions, so on and so forth. Now, just be aware that there is a strict deadline on identification now and communication to the speakers. All decisions on the speakers for each session will be closed by 31st of December. You would have seen the communication that's happening on the Ministry Roundtable on Urban, and we are now looking forward to a list of mayors who can be proposed to each of these sessions, and then the organizing team will take a decision if they are okay with that or if they would like us to identify a different mayor or local government for their sessions as speakers. So I've already informed Mohammed about this in our call on the Minister Roundtable call 2 days back. I don't think you were there, Yunus, so just for your information, we just have 1 week to suggest names of local government authorities or mayors for each of these sessions, which needs to be compiled here and then be sent to each and every focal point.
I will ask one question. For the moment, we are only thinking of mayors on this. The discussion we had was on this ministerial roundtable on urban, but now I see here in the stakeholders a huge list of agendas. How are we able to nominate mayors or 6 officials in these sessions?
That's what I was saying now. That's what I was saying, that there is only next 1 week, within the next 1 week, that's by next Wednesday, we have to come up with a list of mayors which we suggest for each and every session, just not for the ministerial roundtable on urban, for all of the sessions, and then we will take it to each and every focal point of these sessions for them to take a decision.
Okay, I was only aware of the ministerial one, so then we have to go through all the agenda, all the sessions that we are able to nominate mayors. Is that correct?
Exactly, exactly. And that's what we discussed at the last call we had on the Minister Roundtable.
You're talking about Monday call.